vaccinated, many people are holding off on getting their vaccinations because of concerns they may have around the safety of the vaccine. So even just in recent days, we heard that the vaccination hubs in Melbourne were pretty much empty, and people who walked past described these as heartbreaking scenes. But that is starting to pick up in recent days. State authorities in Victoria are starting to talk about opening up vaccinations to younger sections of the population. But also recently we've just heard that businesses are getting on board as well. So Australian airline Qantas is considering offering free flights and frequent flyer points to people who have had both vaccinations. It's understood that they're still trying to iron out a few of the finer details, but if that goes ahead, that would be coming into effect sort of towards the next few months and for the rest of the year. So definitely what we understand is that Australia's borders will remain closed until we can get much of the population vaccinated.
Well, Australia is also battling another growing natural disaster. A plague of mice is threatening farms in New South Wales. Millions of rodents have infested the agricultural plains across the state, forcing many farmers to burn thousands of dollars worth of hay and grain. There are growing concerns over the potential economic and social crisis. By day, the crisis is less apparent. That's because the nocturnal animals come out after dark. In the millions, they can be heard scratching ceilings and chewing electrical wires. But residents say the stench of mice, urine and decaying flesh is a constant, both day and night. The plague is a cruel blow to farmers in a state who have been battered by fires, floods and pandemic disruptions. New South Wales Top Agricultural Association predicts the plague will wipe out more than $775 million from the value of the winter crop. The state government has announced nearly $40 million in funding to tackle the plague, and it has ordered 5,000 litres of the banned poison bromeliad from India. But critics fear the poison will kill not only mice, but also animals that feed on them. There are fears the infestation will spread. Experts warn the mouse plague is showing no sign of slowing down, and it is spreading across the country. India is scrapping local trials for what it calls well-established foreign coronavirus vaccines in a bid to accelerate its inoculation rollout. India today reported over 186,000 new coronavirus infections, its lowest since mid-April, while some 3,600 more people have died. Last month, India pledged to fast-track shots from Pfizer-BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson and Moderna. But talks stalled after the government insisted on local trials and a dispute over indemnity. An official says they are now expecting doses from Pfizer as soon as July. But the official says that the government is still examining the request of pharmaceutical companies to grant them legal protection.
We are looking at what their expectations from the government are, and they are looking at what our expectations from them are. That's the process in which this will move, because they have to come into India, they have to apply for licensure, so that's one path. And there are imperatives of cold chain and supply, etc., so that's being looked at.
Only about 11% of India's 1.3 billion population has received at least one dose of vaccine and has the lowest rate among countries with the highest number of infections. Vaccine supplies and raw materials to make vaccines will likely top the agenda when India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar meets his U.S. counterpart, Antony Blinken, today. This is the first trip by an Indian minister to Washington since President Joe Biden took office in January. Neha Punia tells us more.
Ross of Commerce here. And
the Indian Foreign Minister has a packed schedule ahead of him. He's expected to meet U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday, and the two are likely to discuss, among other things, security in the Indo-Pacific and the Quad initiative that's aimed at countering China's growing influence in the region. The U.S. has said it is keen to convene an in-person meeting of Quad members, including Australia, India and Japan later this year. There are also meetings scheduled with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai. The Indian Foreign Minister's visit comes at a time when New Delhi has clashed with U.S. tech giants like Facebook and Twitter over new social media rules, but top of the agenda is going to be vaccine cooperation. While India's daily COVID-19 caseload has dipped, the country is still recording more infections and deaths than any other country in the world. And despite being the world's largest vaccine manufacturer, India's own vaccination drive has failed to take off due to severe shortages. Only 3% of all Indians are fully vaccinated. Which is why experts say New Delhi will be hoping that the Biden administration will release a large chunk of its spare vaccines to India. The US plans to export 80 million doses from its stockpile by June to needy countries. Talks are also expected to cover the smoothing of exports of raw materials that India needs to scale up vaccine production at home. More than 200 ingredients come to the country from the US. Last month, caving under increasing public criticism, the Biden administration finally loosened restrictions on the export of vaccine raw materials, but domestic companies say supplies are still erratic. Reports suggest that the Indian Foreign Minister might also hold a meeting with Pfizer representatives. India's emergency authorization to that vaccine has been pending because of the US drug maker's insistence that its company get legal protection in the event of any adverse reactions from its vaccine. Neha Punia, CNA, New Delhi.
So have your Asia Business Update coming up with Eugenia Lim, including Australia pressing a World Trade Organization case against Chinese tariffs on barley imports. And later, Singapore authorities crack down on a social media platform for an offending poll.
This is Game Oji-san. I make YouTube videos. While he does bespoke carpentry, I get up close with a new generation of local craft people.
Whatever it took to become a woodworker, I think I did it.
Starting with a furniture artisan.
If you're a CEO, the desk represents you.
Where I keep all my fingers? Handmade Tales, a brand new series, Sunday on CNA.
Every day, the financial world goes through dramatic rise and falls. We'll track the biggest market movers and show you where the opportunities lie. Get the experts' take on the performance of key indices. Plus all the analysis to help you understand forces driving global economies. The daily business news you need. Only on CNA. This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation.
In 1977, we took air travel to a whole new level when it comes to exclusivity.
4 Singaporeans go back in time to search for more answers from Singapore's past.
What was the experience on the Concorde like?
The pilots can actually see the curvature of the Earth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
From tracking down a legendary white crocodile.
We have here the only mention of white crocodile, Buaya Putih, in the Straits of Singapore.
There's this element of, what's the truth there?
To uncovering what used to lie under an iconic building.
This great building here is very curious.
What we are looking at is the full extent of Kampung Glam, actually.
What else lies forgotten in the vault of time?
In the early days, you could just walk into a shop and buy a gun.
Wait, so back then, people could keep guns at home?
Oh, we had guns at home. My father was a gun owner.
Wow.
Watch Into the Vault 3 on demand at cna.asia.
So little land with so many mouths to feed.
Land matters. The future is going to be really challenging.
Dan akhirnya dibuang seperti ini dengan mubazir sangat disayangkan sekali.
Ini adalah solusinya.
We can turn Singapore into a protein powerhouse overnight, but people don't understand what we're doing.
Women farmers are the solution for the food security problem.
Race to Feed the World, Monday on CNA.
In business news, Australia is seeking to move ahead with its case against heavy Chinese tariffs on barley imports. It plans to ask the World Trade Organization to establish a dispute settlement